Hey, home sellers are losing thousands of dollars before they even put their house on the market, and we're going to explain why and how you can avoid that in this video coming up, so stay tuned. I'm Derek Phillips with Better Homes and Garden Palmetto in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm part of the Coastal Group, and we have a team member pretty much all over the state, whether it is Greenville, Myrtle Beach, Beaufort, or here in Charleston, South Carolina, which is where I am. So if you need assistance in the state of South Carolina, just let me know. My contact information is below. So why are people using thousands of dollars before they even list their house? There's a bunch of different reasons. I picked out a couple that I feel are very, very important and things that are overlooked a lot of times in the beginning process. Once you start going through it and you start listening, it's pretty common sense. But we're not going to go over like price your house right. Everybody knows to price your house right, or maybe why not to listen or look at your neighbor's house and what that sold for, because almost every time it's not necessarily what it sold for, or it might have sold for that, but there are other concessions or things that happen within that deal that number looks probably a little bit inflated than what they actually pay for it. So let's go deeper into why this is. Let's get into the real nuts and bolts of this real quick. So number one is we want to make sure we start our process early. So if you're even thinking about selling your home, you might want to reach out to a realtor. They don't mind it, or at least I don't mind it, if you reach out and say, hey, I'm looking to sell my house fairly soon, maybe in the next year, but it's just something I'm thinking about. Can you come by and let us know what you think? So that's something that I like doing because I think it provides a value add for you, and it relieves you of a lot of stress once you start the process. So knowing where you are in the market and what you need to do to get top dollar from the start before you even start the process, it's just going to alleviate a lot of stress. So what you can do to find out how long it's going to take to sell your home, questions you should ask your realtor: what is the amount of time homes are staying on the market? Why? So for right now in Charleston National, it's a little under 2 weeks is the 10 days is the average day on market. For that, you want to start at least a month out to prep your home, because there might be some things you want to do, such as like touch up paints, get pictures, and maybe you even want to do a pre-listing home inspection to kind of help and know what you're going to get into. So if you're a high stress individual and you don't like the unknowns, you can mitigate that a little bit by doing a pre-listing inspection. They aren't full inspections, they aren't as robust as the buyer side, but it will definitely give you an idea and help you hopefully sell your house sooner, or at least get those traps that you might not know about or seen out of the way that home inspectors will discover. Number two is the amount of money people spend when they're trying to update, repair, renovate their home to sell. They think it might have to be perfect. In some cases, that's not true. Luxury homes and real nice areas and even decent areas, they might want to, depending on the house and where you're at, you might want to spend a little bit more, and maybe you do want to do closer to a full renovation before you sell. But I don't like spending my money for somebody else to live in. And then also the ROI on a full renovation of a kitchen or bathroom is around 50 to 60% on average. That's not really where you want to be. So you're not looking to lose 50% of the investment you spent. So you basically gave the home buyers a 50% discount on the renovation that you just did, and you're not even staying in it. So let's not do that. Some things we can do though that are smart a lot of times, especially if you haven't updated in a while, is updating the hardware. So like the doorknobs or the kitchen pull out drawers, maybe even paint the cabinets. That's even a possibility if you have some time and you're good at that kind of thing. I wouldn't necessarily pay somebody to do that, but that's something that I would consider doing. But then exterior is where there are a lot of good return on your investment. So the siding of your house on the street side, so if the bottom third of your house isn't stone or brick or whatever, maybe it's vinyl, it might not be a bad idea to put up some stone on the front third of your house, and just kind of makes it look a little more polished, a little more upscale from the road. And then also just kind of spreading out some mulch, getting everything nice and fresh out front. You don't have to do a whole lot, just enough to make it look nice and fresh, nice and clean, and easy on the eyes when they pull up. Remember that 5 to 8 second thing. And then when you go into the house, you want to make sure you don't have this like little doorknob not on all houses, but on a lot of houses. You want to make sure when you go into the house that it is a solid feel. You're not looking, when you grab the door handle, it's not like jiggly and loose or just a cheap doorknob. You want to make sure it looks right. A lot of this also on the scale of what you're trying to renovate is going to depend on the price point and what your neighborhood calls for. So if the neighborhood doesn't call for this, you don't need to do it. If the neighborhood does call for it, if every house in the neighborhood has been renovated and they're selling for a certain price, then we might want to look into what that would look like price-wise, cost-wise, what in your all situation, and what you need to do with that. So what about the compensation and who gets paid and how they get paid? This is one of those uncomfortable conversations or tough conversations that I was talking about before. Does the seller have to pay for the buyer's agent compensation? And the answer is no. It's always been no. 10 years ago it was no, 5 years ago it was no, now it's still no. However, since the NAR settlement, things have gotten a little convoluted and now people's mindsets have changed. So that being said, the mindset has changed, therefore the industry has changed a little bit, and we as home sellers, home buyers, and agents, we all have to kind of adapt with it. And unfortunately, it puts a lot of the burden on the buyers, so which is good for you all in a sense if you're selling your home, but it can also be a negative thing if you're diminishing your pool of buyers. So if they're having to come right out of pocket with their closing costs and with their down payment, and now they're having to pay their agent too, it could diminish the buyer's pool slightly. So that is one concern. However, I've had buyers that they didn't seem too concerned about that part of it. But then it can be negotiated into the deal. There's a bunch of different ways, and if the listing or the homeowner decides that they would like to pay and offer the buyer's agent commission, that can help with the expanding your buyer pool. However, you don't have to, and that's a negotiation between you and your listing agent. And in some markets it's not necessary, and in some price points it might not be necessary. But just know that that's a discussion that needs to be had in a little more strategic way than it has in the past, because of the dynamic of how it's being paid now and what people can afford to pay. When you bought your house that you're trying to sell, I'm going to guess that you probably didn't have to pay the buyer's commission. And would you have been able to afford that if that were the case? You might have, but it's always kind of been where it's always been reciprocal, like kind of built into the deal. So when you're looking at prices and homes that have sold recently in your neighborhood, you're probably not going to see whether that commission was involved and who paid the commission. Along with, you're not going to see some of the concessions that were paid for. So again, going back to earlier, I believe I said that be careful when you look at the home prices that have sold around your neighborhood and trying to adjust your price. You can get a ballpark figure, but it's going to be real difficult to nail that down. So let's make sure that we get started on this process early, and then that way we can have everything dealt with up front, and there's a good solid plan in place. All right, so if you have any questions, contact information is below. Check out one of these next videos.